What we do here is go back.
My name is That3GGT, and I'm just here to introduce myself. I wanted to announce that I'm beginning a new series, which is a complete guide to your 3G Eclipse. The goal of this series is to provide reliable resources to beginners and really anyone who'd like to learn cars. More specifically, I'm going to be demonstrating everything for the 3G Eclipse platform. Combustion cars, you can still learn. There's already online resources for this car. You can find everything you need on the internet. The problem is these sources are hard to find and they're also outdated. Like you have to search through forums and stuff, and like that's just not how it is now. So my idea is I want to take all that previous information that people have figured out and I've taken the time to research, and I want to transform that into a video, more digestible format for people to learn. I was always interested in cars, but when I bought this car, I really didn't know much about them other than I just liked them. This is my first car. This has taught me everything I know to date about this platform and automobiles and stuff like that. I've learned everything through this thing. I've had this car now for 3 years. That's been my ownership history, and over those 3 years, it's taught me absolutely not everything I need to know because I'm always learning stuff, but it's taught me a lot. I figured that over the 3 years, and I started from knowing nothing, so I figured there's probably someone out there that was 3 years ago me and just doesn't know a lot about this and would probably like a good resource to teach them. So I'm here to provide that for you. There's people probably in similar situations that I was in that bought their Eclipse and they don't really know what to do. I've spent hours researching the platform for myself, and I figured it'd just be selfish to keep all that information to myself. And I think I can provide that information on a much better medium because the video is the way to go now, right? Like people don't want to read through a bunch of stuff, so if you can have it in a video format, which covers everything, that's perfect. This series, the aim is to provide you everything you need to know about the car to keep it properly maintained. I'll also throw in some fun facts about the car because people do not talk about these things, and there's actually a lot of cool aspects to these cars that I think people don't know. Also, I want to give tutorials on how to make repairs on this thing and just do regular work, like do-it-yourself type thing. I also want to explain how the various systems in this car actually function, because I feel like if you have an understanding of how something functions, you kind of attribute more value to that thing because you appreciate whatever job or purpose it's fulfilling in the vehicle, right? So I think it's just good to have an understanding of what we're talking about before we actually do the things. And yeah, and it's going to be about a bunch of stuff. We're just going to talk about a bunch of topics. That's going to be what this channel is. It can literally be about anything, but my goal is to have you get a better understanding from whatever the topic is that we discuss. So I'm thinking that we're going to begin with simple things, and that way, like, you can just get we'll just start with the simple stuff, so that way you can get accustomed to it a little bit, get the basics down, and then after we have all the basic stuff down, like I'm assuming like you just literally were like me and didn't know anything, and we're starting from ground zero, we will work our way up through to more complex topics. So if you have a topic that you would like me to cover in a video format, in an explanation or whatever it is, send me a message through Instagram, let me know in the comments, and I can make a video. I have a list right now with a bunch of video ideas that I want to do for this thing, but like I might miss stuff, right? So if there's something that I haven't done or haven't considered doing, let me know, and then I can make a video in that format, and then you guys will have everything you need to know. With that introduction, I think that we're ready to get started on our first topic. And I'm thinking for the first few videos of the video series, and I don't know if I'll run through all the videos in order, like I might do it at different times, but I'm thinking to start off, we can start with fluids, because there's a bunch of fluids in your car you have to maintain, and yeah, so I think that's a good starting point. more specifically, we're not going to talk about all the fluids in one video, we'll break it down. This video specifically is going to be everything you need to know about oil. So that's where we'll begin, and from there we can move on to more complex topics. Let's get it. Okay, y'all, so this is actually what the owner's manual looks like. I know people hear about it a lot, but I swear no one ever actually reads these things. But you should really read this thing because it's a lot of good information. So as you can see, here's your owner's manual right there. There's the Canadian version, I guess. But yeah, no, it's this is something you really need to read. It's very helpful. So as the manual states, you're going to use the engine hood release lever located under the instrument panel near the driver's side door to unlock the engine hood. Pull the lever towards you to release the engine hood latch. Step one is obviously going to be unlock your car, and you're just going to want to open up your door. And the first thing you're going to want to do is pop the hood. So if you don't know, your hood release on this car and most other cars, it's found right here. So it's literally just a little thing. You just pull it back and you'll hear it unlock. So here's a close-up of what that hood release looks like. You're literally just going to grab under here and pull it down, and that's how you release your hood in this car. Release the safety lever and lift the engine hood. Note, to prevent damage to the engine hood and wipers, make sure the wipers are at resting position when you open the hood. So now that you're at the front, you see the hood's going to be popped open a little bit. All you're going to do, you're going to put your finger in like this, and then you want to find the hood release, push it to the left, and then you'll be able to open up your hood. Here's a close-up view of how the hood latch actually works, because you can't see it when the hood's actually shut, but you're literally just going to find this thing with your finger and move it to the left, and that's what unlocks your hood. You can support the engine hood with the hood prop. Insert the hood prop securely into the opening under the hood marked with an arrow. And right here, you have a hood holder. So this is what your car is going to look like after you open the hood and put up that hood strut. What we're going to start with here, how to actually check your oil. As you can see, this is where your oil dipstick is. That's what that white thing that says engine on it is. What you're going to want to do, you're going to want to take out your oil dipstick, and there's going to be oil on it, so you actually want to grab a rag. Also, when you're doing this, you want your motor to actually be cold when you're doing the reading of your oil. Otherwise, once it heats up, it expands and you're going to get a too high of a reading. So make sure your car is cold when you're checking the oil. But the first thing you're going to want to do, pretend this thing is in, you're just going to take it out, and there's probably going to be oil on the actual dipstick just from getting shot up and actually splattered on the thing. So what you're going to want to do is you want to take your rag and you're going to just clean off the dipstick. And then after you have a clean dipstick, as you can see, this right here is your oil dipstick. And more specifically, this one's clean because I just wiped it with the rag. Right up here this is your low line. This is at the bottom of the dipstick. And up here, this is your oil full line. So those two are important for your reading, and I'll show you in a second why. So make sure that your oil dipstick is clean as such. So when checking your oil to refill engine oil, it is normal for the engine to use up some oil. You want to add oil between the recommended oil change intervals. Before starting the engine, check the oil level, refill if necessary. To check the oil level, remove the dipstick, wipe it off, and gently insert it all the way back into the crankcase. Slowly remove it again, and the oil level must not go above the range of good on the dipstick. If the level does not reach the range of good, which shows the smallest amount of oil needed, and then after you have your clean oil dipstick, what you're going to do, you're going to come over here and put it back in, and you're going to put it all the way in so it's in its stock position. So as you can see, that's all the way in, and then you can go do your reading. So now that you've put the clean dipstick back in, you're going to be able to get a proper reading of how full your oil actually is. So now you can take this dipstick out, and then as you can see, My oil is just below that full line, so I'm good right now. I could maybe pull like a little bit, but I'm not even going to. Like, I don't want to risk overfilling, because you do not want to overfill your oil. So as you can see, my oil is good. So I'm just going to put that back, and when you put your cap back, please make sure that this is pushed in all the way so you don't have oil shooting out everywhere when you start the car. As you can see, anything that is in between the full mark and the low mark is good. You're in the good oil range. Same thing applies for a 4-cylinder engine. Both need to be in between that range, and it naturally burns a little bit of oil, so I just tend to put it right below the highest mark, and then that way I don't have to worry about it being too low. So imagine that oil wasn't in between those two lines and you are needing to get it filled up. If your oil's below the low line, you're gonna starve the system. That is very bad for your car. And if you overfill your oil, that is also bad for the car. So you want to be in between those two marks, and you're gonna want to check your owner's manual where specifically you want to be. So where it is now for me, that's how I keep it. I just keep it right under full, and I top it up if I ever need to. But if you don't overfill it, don't underfill it, and check with your manufacturer. Some people say, I think some manufacturers have it like it has to be in the middle of those two lines. So just double check with your owner's manual what your manufacturer is telling you to do. So if you overfill your oil, you're gonna have to drain some out of the bottom with your drain plug, which is the same way you would do an oil change. So like I mentioned, and I'll make an oil change video, I don't need an oil change at the moment, so I'll wait to do that. But there's a drain plug on your oil pan, which is basically at the bottom of the motor. It's a 17 millimeter, and you loosen it up, and that is how you would drain out the oil in this car. So why you do not want to overfill your car is overfilling the crankcase will cause oil aeration and loss of oil pressure, which could damage the engine. So it's a big no-go to overfill. But I can't show you that at the moment because I don't have a jack and I can't really see under my car because it's lowered. So I'm just going to show you what you do if you have little oil and you need to top yourself up. Remove the oil filler cap from the engine valve cover and fill it to within the good range. And when they're saying good range, they just mean in between the oil full and the oil low marks. So as you can see, that which says oil and open, that's just showing, the arrow shows you which direction to open it. That is your oil fill cap. So if you are low on oil, you're going to need to get your oil, and you're going to need to get a funnel so you don't make a mess of your engine bay, and then you're going to fill up through there. And you're going to put in whatever amount you need, and you're going to use that oil fill, like your dipstick, to see how full you are, and you can fill it up and then get it to whatever level you need it to be. Just a quick tutorial, if you ever need to open this, it's literally just twist to the left like that, and then it's unlocked, and then you can lift it up, and that's what it looks like. And then whenever you need you can see there's these locking teeth. You're just going to line it up like that, and then twist it back the other way, and now it is shut. The correct terminology is engine oil filler cap and engine oil level dipstick. So for the people that are wondering, this is the type of oil, at least for this specific car, that's in the owner's manual, and I'll explain what's different. Pennzoil is my preference of brand specifically, but honestly, Mobile One, Pennzoil, like they're all kind of similar, but yeah, it's just a brand preference really. So now that you know how to check your oil and you know how to fill it up if you're low, and worst case scenario, just don't overfill it. But if you do, now you know how to take it out, and I'll show you that better when how to remove the oil when I do the oil change video. But next, I'm going to talk about the actual oil itself. So as you can see, I use Pennzoil, but I'm going to break down what the different things are, different aspects of the oil are. The first thing you're going to want to know is what the rating of your oil is, I guess. So in this car, it is recommended to use SAE 5W30 oil. That is like how thick your oil is at cold and how thick it is when it's warmed up, essentially. And Mitsubishi recommends this, so that is what I've chosen. As you guys can see here, this owner's manual recommends the 5W30 for the thing, but what it shows you here is the actual temperature range that it's effective. So it kind of changes, but for Canada at least, it's never going to be over 38 degrees Celsius here. So it's not going to, that is ideal for me because that is going to be the maximum temperature here. And also it gets really cold in the winter. So and the SE 10W30, that can only go to about -18, and it gets colder than that. So SAE 530 is preferred here, so that can help with your decision for engine oil viscosity. But personally, I'm in a colder place, so I'm going to use SAE 5W30. Now, what's different about this oil compared to other oils is I run full synthetic oil. And there's really three types of oil out there. There is conventional oil, which is what this car was originally made to run on. There's mixed synthetic oil, which is essentially some synthetic oil and some conventional oil, which I don't really get the point of that. And then you have 100% full synthetic oil like you see before you right now. So that's just one thing to be careful of when you're buying synthetic oil. You want to make sure that you are buying like 100% synthetic oil and you read the bottle right, because there are pre-mixed ones which it says synthetic on it, but it's really a mixture of synthetic and conventional oil. So you want 100% synthetic oil. So you're probably wondering, why do I need synthetic oil in my car? And basically, it is just a better oil than conventional oil. It lasts longer, and yeah, you can run it longer. Not that I do run it longer, but if you wanted to go a longer time, you technically could go longer without having to change your oil with this oil. It's just essentially, imagine it, synthetic oil is just better than conventional oil. What's good though is I'll show you how to do an oil change video, but realistically you can pick up this more expensive oil and get a good synthetic oil filter, and I'll provide the actual part number to you. You're going to want to pick up synthetic oil filter if you use synthetic, or if you decide to go with conventional, then I guess you can use a conventional oil filter. But synthetic oil filters, they're made for synthetic oil and they're made to last longer with the oil, and they filter really well. So the part number for the oil filter for our car, it's an XG3593A. So that's the part number you're going to need. But yeah, you just got to take my word for that. And also check your owner's manual. So essentially, the oil that you're going to want to get, that I would personally recommend, I would recommend that you get full 100% synthetic oil, and you get a proper synthetic oil filter. K&N makes good oil filters, but I do know Mobile One filters do work. That is what I've been using, is the Mobile One synthetic oil filters. Now I'm just going to discuss what the actual function of oil is, because I feel like if you understand what your oil actually does, that's going to make it more valuable to you to actually check this oil. So with all this information, you'll have an understanding of how the oil system in your car actually works. I wanted to begin with explaining the essential fluids and how to properly maintain the 3G Eclipse, how they function, and I believe that if you understand something, you're going to value that more.
So that being said, what better fluid to begin with than the oil of your motor? So oil is the blood of your motor. It's responsible for lubricating the many moving parts inside the engine and keeps it running smoothly. The oil is protecting these components and preventing internal damage during normal operations. So how the process of your oil actually works: oil starts off at the bottom of your motor and collects in your oil pan reservoir. Then, from that reservoir, your oil pump sucks the oil out through a pickup tube and then takes the oil to the oil filter to be cleaned of all dirt and imperfections basically in the oil. So your filter makes your oil, after it's done its cycle through the engine, it cleans it for it. So this filter cleans microscopic particles and sends the clean pressurized oil to the top of the motor. From the top, the clean oil is sent through the entire engine through a circuit of oilways. So it's going everywhere in your motor, lubricating every moving part that needs to be lubricated. These channels take the oil to the critical engine parts using pressure and gravity. The bearings support the crankshaft on a continuous film of oil. Pistons are cooled down and kept clean by the oil's detergent action. Your valve train is protected by the oil's anti-wear system. To avoid friction and damaging wear to these components, they must be well lubricated, which is essentially the job of the oil. The oil is the only thing preventing metal-on-metal contact. Finally, the oil is then returned after running through all these channels via the sump oil return channels to start the process all over again. So the whole cycle of one full cycle of oil traveling through your motor can happen in less than 5 seconds. So frequency, let's talk about the frequency. How often should you change your mileage? So I'll insert whatever Mitsubishi recommends, but personally, every 5,000 kilometers to 8,000 kilometers, I'm changing this oil. Despite it being synthetic and I know it can last longer, so one thing I found interesting is the manual literally says, engine oil consumption is greatly influenced by the payload engine speed of the vehicle. The engine oil will deteriorate rapidly if the vehicle is subjected to severe conditions, for example, repeated operation on rough roads, in mountainous regions, on roads with many uphills and downhill gradients, or over short distances. Consequently, the oil will require earlier replacement. So it's essentially saying if you drive the car harder, you're going to have to change that oil more often because there's going to be more stuff getting in your oil, making it more dirty, and that's not good. So you're going to need more frequent oil changes the harder you drive. If you're more of a light on the pedal type of driver, you probably don't have to change your oil as much. I like to change it every 5,000 to 8,000 kilometers. And my logic behind this is the more often that you change your oil, the less dirty that oil will be. So essentially, when your car is running and it has oil lubricating everything, that oil through function like kind of gets dirty and it gets different things. And ooh, that Subi sounded great. So essentially, your engine oil starts off as just the oil that you put in it, and that is a great lubricant, and it stops the metal-on-metal contact of all your parts. But what happens is if you have dirt and different things from normal wear get in your oil, that lubricant becomes less lubricant. It turns the oil into almost like a sandpaper, imagine. So if you're running your motor with dirty oil, that is going to prematurely wear the motor, and you're just not going to have a good time. So to keep your engine and oil as clean as possible, you just want to change your oil really as often as possible, and that will help your motor like survive basically. So this will preserve your engine much better if you change the oil more often. If you keep dirty oil in your motor, you'll have poor lubrication, and this will cause friction, which will damage your engine's internals. This is why poorly maintained cars burn oil, because the lack of changes has already caused the internal damage. So if you've bought a car and they haven't been doing oil changes on it, it's probably more worn out than a car that was always getting their oil changes done regularly, because that car will have had clean oil, so it won't have that friction and it'll just be in good shape. So, and also, to scare you a little bit more, 75% of used cars are not maintained correctly. So you have a 75% chance that someone wasn't doing this stuff right, only 25% chance that they were. So that is a little spooky. So the main point is, the more you change your oil, the longer that your engine's going to last. So finally, to close your hood, unlatch the prop from the engine hood and put it back into its retainer. There's a little bracket. After you've done that, slowly lower the hood to about 12 inches and then let it drop from its own weight. If this does not close the engine hood properly, drop it again from a slightly higher position. I will elaborate this more when I do an oil change video, when I need to do it. The only things I really couldn't show is how to do the actual oil change itself, because I don't need an oil change right now, and the drain plug underneath. I'm pretty sure that's the only things that I didn't get to cover in this video. I'll do another video showing you step by step how to do an oil change in this car. So I think the moral of the story here, if there's any moral of the story, read your owner's manual. It's really helpful. It literally has all the information on here. If you didn't have the internet, you could probably read this thing and figure everything out. But people don't like to read, so I guess I'll read it for you guys. It's okay. I understand. I don't love reading either, but I like learning.